This is game three, Colle Delvaux, um, with the Colle opening. D4, knight f6, knight f3, standard, knight e6, standard, knight e3, standard, d5. And you'll notice this is a symmetrical setup. Um, so the computer rates this as exactly even. That's why the Colle is considered a little bit of a slow opening for white, pretty old fashioned, but there's still ways to get some attack patterns. D3, and what White's kind of hoping is that this bishop is going to be better than this bishop because this one is hemmed in. C5. Actually, Black here is pretty equal in that, so Black's actually going to have a pawn. His C pawn is going to be a little further than White's C pawn, so he's actually got more space in the center here. So very, very, very equal situation. Knight c6, good move. Knight b d2. This is standard setup. He's got to put his knight here because the c3 square is gone. Um, Bishop e7. This is a little slow because, quite honestly, b6 is probably better because he's getting more space here, and then he can put this bishop right here on b7, and his pawn structure is intact. But the bishop on e7 probably should have waited to be developed because if White captures here, he can recapture his bishop on. I mean, recapture with the bishop on c5 with tempo. Okay, so he plays bishop e7, and then White castles. This is probably the weakest move of the opening here for Black because he's really locked this and hasn't really gained much. He's gained a little space here, but what's going to happen is this bishop's going to come back here totally safely, um, and probably castling was best. That's what the computer has it rated as because he gets king safety and he needs to be developing the rest of these pieces. So he kind of made it a pawn push that kind of locked the center. Um, Still, it's a playable game though. White plays bishop c2, just goes back, and if you notice, he has the same effect whether he's here or here, aiming to the king side. Bishop b5, good move. Looks like he's gaining queenside space. So this is where Black's going to be looking to attack, where they have much more space, right? And White's going to be looking to go to the king side because this is where his pawns and pieces should be aimed. So e4. Now this is the big move that White's been waiting for because with e4, this is going to now rip this part of the board open so his pieces can get going in this direction. Black captures, which is fine. He retakes with a knight. He launches forward. Black castles, which is playable. Yeah, I guess that's probably maybe one of the better moves. Queen e2. Solid move. I'm trying to. The computer probably likes h4 actually to engineer probably a pawn break here as he's going to the king side. But plays queen e2. Black develops his bishop to b7. Now this is he's launching this knight forward to get in an attack on one of these squares here. The best Black's best move is actually capturing here, capturing, and then he sets up a mate in one on h7. He blocks, and then maybe queen h4 or something like that, trying to engineer another checkmate here. And the game is pretty equal, but what this move does is actually start to put pressure on Black, and he actually errors here positionally, and he plays h6. Now the computer has him at pretty much busted with a 2.1 evaluation for White. Like I said, from here, really, um, it's White's technique that just rips apart Black's kingside. So he's going to respond with eliminating a defender of this position. Bishop has to take. And now he plays queen e4, developing his queen with a mate threat here. Okay, very solid move. Gains tempo while attacking. He plays g6. Now, anytime you play g6 and there's a knight on g5, this is going to be able to be a target, and it's ripped open. So he comes in here with a knight, and of course White's got this all calculated out. Really, at this point, the only way to save the game for Black is capturing with the knight here, giving up that bishop, and retaking back, and then dropping those pawns. And he's still got a playable game, but he's at a disadvantage. But what really happens is he takes with the pawn and challenges White to mate him, and White does have the required technique to do so. Queen takes g6. He blocks with the bishop. Queen h7. This is going to start to smoke out the black king. And here comes reinforcements. g6 with a check. Oopsie daisy. g6 with a check. He goes to f6. Now, these two really aren't enough to mate Black, so he's got to bring in more pieces. So he actually gives himself a little space there, so this piece can come in and make more threats with his queen. And by pulling this bishop back, he eliminates this as a runaway square. He plays knight e7 over for defense. Now White captures and gets this pawn. And really, the threat now is, if you just make a dummy move, it's capturing there, f5, and then that's a checkmate. Or if he captures that with his bishop, queen takes, he runs away, and then now you gotta mate. You're gonna catch him with the pawn there, or even shifting this rook over here and maybe an attack on e5. Okay, so he takes with this. So instead, Black defends with rook g8. This protects this square from being captured by the queen. White hustles in more reinforcements with h4, and right now the immediate threat is the bishop going to g5, and that's checkmating. Okay, if you can visualize that. So if this is where I believe just about White resigns, because he captures here by mistake, actually, and here comes the mate. There's a checkmate there. And after h4, all the other moves lose 2. If he plays queen d5, there's a check, and he has to drop the queen that way. And also, if he just makes a blank, some other move, that's also checkmate. I think I brought that up earlier. And if he plays e5 to make himself a little bit more space to run away here, you can do bishop takes, rook takes, and then d takes e5, and now that's going to drop the rook. e6, queen takes g7, and White's is down so much. Black is down so much material. So let's go back to where we were, and this is pretty much the end position. Black had played bishop takes, so now the queen can take on f7. Checkmate.